My name is Charles Harrell with the Veterans History Project. I'm a volunteer here in Hagerstown, Maryland. It is October 18th, 2008. I'm here with Mr. Joe Scott talking about his World War II experience. For the record, Mr. Scott, would you state your full name?
Joseph K. Scott.
And what is your current address?
11004 Rustner Avenue, Hagerstown, Maryland.
21740?
Yeah, 21740.
Where were you born?
Port Republic, Virginia.
And when were you born?
October 17th, 1914.
During World War II, what branch of service were you in?
Air Force.
And were you enlisted or drafted or commissioned?
I enlisted.
Did you enlist in October of 1942?
Right.
And did they discharge you in 1945?
Right.
What was your highest rank?
Staff Sergeant.
And what company or bomb group were you in?
509th Bomb Group.
Did you only serve during World War II?
Right.
And overseas, where were you stationed?
The island of Tinian.
That's where they had the Enola Gay takeoff for the atomic attack.
Right.
Your duties in the 509th was what?
Say it again.
What was your duty?
Oh, I was a supply sergeant for Air Corps supplies. Our nuts and bolts and all airplane parts.
Were you ever a prisoner?
No.
Did you ever get injured?
No.
Before we talk about your unique experience in the Air Force, Mr. Scott, I'd like to know a little bit more about you. You were born really early, and when the war comes along, you're older than most of the guys.
Right. Well, I was deferred quite a few times, but I volunteered before I was drafted.
I see. Can you tell me what you can remember about growing up in the Great Depression, the early days of the Great Depression?
Oh, yes, I was in high school when the Depression started. We lived on a farm, and we got hit pretty hard.
Was that down in Virginia?
Down in Virginia, yes.
What was your dad's name?
Harvey H. Scott Sr.
What type of farm did you all have?
A livestock farm, general livestock farm. We had it pretty tough, but we always had plenty to eat. Well, many a time we'd hire labor to help in busy chores on the farm for 50 cents a day. And sometimes they'd come for breakfast, eat lunch, and stay for dinner because they didn't have much at home. So it was rather rough. And I graduated from high school in 1931 and went to Bridgewater College that fall. At that particular time, they were begging for students to attend the college because, you know, people didn't have any money. So my brother and I went to college at the same time. He was 2.5 years older than me, but he got sick one year, and I caught up with him in the third grade, and we went through college together. He graduated in 1935.
Now, you're one of the few men I've talked to that is as old as you are. Can you remember the 20s and how life changed as the Great Depression came for you all?
Yes, I was in high school at the time, and it was rough. It was rough. As I said, we had plenty to eat, but the unemployment was terrible. The Norfolk and Western Railroad ran through our farm, and every time a train would come by, a freight train would be, you find 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hobos. We call them hobos, but they were men trying to find work, going somewhere to find work. And it was just rough times.
But you never had to be unemployed in that sense, did you?
No, I was just a kid then. Our farm joined the railroad, and we had just killed young kids, you know, and then the trains would come by, and the engineer would see we were kids and running a team of horses, and they'd blow the whistle just to scare the horses. So, but it didn't cause any harm, you know.
In 1932, you're in high school.
Right.
Franklin Roosevelt runs for president against Herbert Hoover. Were you old enough to vote?
No, I wasn't old enough to vote, but I remember him very distinctly. In fact, I can tell you about one incident. I was going to, on the public road there, with a load of manure on a wagon and four horses. And two motorcycles came down the road and motioned me over to get off the road. And then right behind the motorcycles was Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Byrd. If you remember, when Roosevelt was elected, he'd go to each state, get the senator there, and ride through the state to local areas and stop and say hello to people along the way. So I got off when the motorcycle came, I got off the wagon and got in front of the horses to hold the horses so they wouldn't run away. And then I remember Roosevelt waving at me.
He didn't stop, though.
No, he didn't stop for me. But,
and this was early.
I'll always remember that.
That's early in his presidency, right?
Right. First year, I think it was.
Soon at that time, he's starting a whole mess of government job programs.
Right.
One of which, major program, was nearby Port Republic.
CC Camp.
The CC Camp?
Right. I used to sell watermelon to the CC boys. I had a watermelon patch, my brother and I, and we sold watermelon for spending money. And I took a couple loads of watermelons up to the CC camp at payday. They told me when to come, and sure enough, I had a spring wagon, a load of watermelons on it with a horse, put one single horse pulling the wagon, pulling the And boy, when CC boys came in from their chores that day, they got paid and hid from my wagon. So I sold them out in about 20 minutes. Yep.
The WPA was also established to build roads and stuff. Did your family get involved with any of these government programs?
We didn't get involved with that. We were kept busy on the farm. We're farming about 500 acres, so we were kept busy.
As the Depression continued, would you characterize your father as a political type of man that talked a lot?
Well, he was politically in his own right, but he didn't go out and speak for any party. But he was a Democrat. He always said that things would get better. Things would get better for the farmer. Things were worse. They were bad then. Hogs were selling for a nickel a pound, and wheat 50 cents a bushel. You know, just wasn't any money.
Did it seem like the Depression was getting better for your guys as the 30s came to an end?
Well, after Roosevelt came in, it seemed like it was picking up because they put more people to work and people had money and then they could buy things, you know.
Well, you went to Greenbrier College and graduated in 1936?
Went to Bridgewater College.
Bridgewater College.
Yeah.
And you
graduated in 1935.
In 35.
Right.
Had you had a job off the farm yet?
No. First job I had was teaching school at a 2-room school in Humes Run near Elkton, Virginia. I was the principal of the school and had taught 4 grades, and then the other teacher taught 3 grades, and I made $80 a month. They gave me $5 a month extra to build 2 fires every morning in the potbelly stoves. in the two-room school.
So you were principal of the school and not yet 24 years old.
Yeah, but I was, well, I taught 4 grades too, you see.
I see.
Yeah. In fact, no, I wasn't 24, I was only 21 years old.
21.
In fact, I started teaching when I was 20. 1 month. September, I was 20 years old in the classroom.
Is that what you wanted to be, a teacher?
Well, you know, I didn't know what I wanted, but I liked it. But I'd only taught there 1 year, and that's when vocational agriculture was coming in on its own. So I went to Virginia Tech. I got my master's degree in agriculture education and taught agriculture in the state of Virginia until I went into service.
Now, where did you teach agriculture?
Albemarle County, a place called Meriwether Lewis. Wonderful place.
Was it a high school?
High school, yeah. But high schools were small in those days, you know. We had only 100 students in high school.
And they had enough students so that you taught agriculture?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Were most of your students boys?
Boys, yeah. Well, they're all boys in. Girls weren't allowed to take agriculture. Now they are, but they weren't then. I also coached basketball, baseball, and boxing. We had boxing in high school in Virginia at that time, in Albemarle County, near the university. The university had a good boxing team. But during the war, they did away with boxing entirely as a sport.
You're the teacher when Adolf Hitler is coming to power.
Oh, yeah.
Being an adult, most of the people I interview are just kids, but you were an adult. Did you hear much about Hitler and what he believed in before the war?
Oh, yeah, yes. I kept up with that. It so happened that I was teaching east of the Blue Ridge, and they were settled around Charlottesville, English settlement. Across the mountain where I was born, there was a German settlement. But I roomed with a lady that her husband had died, and she had some company from Germany, some relative, I believe. And I used to hear their conversations about Hitler coming to power. And she was really interesting. It was interesting to know how Hitler came to power, and she knew all about it.
Did you, as a teacher, talk about these current events to your students?
Not too much in grade schools. You know, kids in grade school didn't relate to that too well.
As the Great Depression continues, the New Deal seems to be employing more and more people.
Yes.
Did some of your money that you got as a teacher come from the federal government to help teach farmers?
In agriculture, yes, we did. See, agriculture was a federally sponsored program. Of course, I forget what the proportion was that the federal government paid. But they helped out financially. I don't remember what proportion it was.
Well, Pearl Harbor is bombed by the Japanese in December 1941.
Right.
Had you, as an adult, known what the Japanese were doing?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember very distinctly. I was riding around in a car on Sunday afternoon. I think I had a date with me, and news came over the radio that Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. So therefore I said, well, I'm bound to be called for the Army, so I may as well start thinking about it.
But you were not 18 or 19 years old anymore.
Yeah.
You were almost 30.
I was at 8. In fact, my number was called up real early. But I was teaching ag, and that was important for food. And also, I was conducting, we call national defense classes.
What was that?
Well, we taught people how to weld and solder and that type of work that they could go out into the public and get jobs with, help out the war, help out the cause of the war.
So you didn't go off?
So I was exempted 3 times. So what happened was I knew the secretary of the draft board. So I says, now, and this program came out for, it took a little exam and for Air Force supplies and equipment and mechanics and that type of thing. So I applied and took that course and passed the course. So I told the draft board secretary, when my number comes up, you notify me 2 weeks in advance. I want to volunteer in that program. So that's what I did. That's how I got to be, that's how I got in the Air Force.
Because otherwise you would have been stuck in the Army somewhere?
I'd probably been in the infantry. I was when they were looking for infantrymen.
Yeah. Were you physically fit?
Oh, yeah.
You were like 26, 27 years old.
Oh, yeah, I was raring to go.
Going to war is serious business.
Oh, yeah.
Were you ever concerned that you would be put on the front line?
Oh, yeah. Well, couldn't do anything about it to me. It wasn't, no need to worry about it. Even my mother, who died just before I went to service, she says, well, you have to support your country. And,
Did you have before you went into the Army? Did you experience rationing of different goods here in America? Like,
yes, oh yes.
Gasoline or anything?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But when you went in the Army, you had plenty of everything.
Yeah.
Where did they send you when you first enlisted?
Well, I had 2 choices. I went to camp. I've been at Camp Lee, Virginia, and they gave me 2 choices since I volunteered for this program. I could go to Middletown, Pennsylvania, or somewhere in California. Well, I had relatives around Harrisburg, and I almost selected California, but I didn't. I said, well, until somebody, I'll be traveling around quite a bit, so I'll get near home as I can. So I volunteered and signed up for Middletown, Pennsylvania.
What was there?
Middletown Air Depot. There was a training for supplies. It was a big supply depot.
So they trained you on how to work supplies?
Yes. Well, a little story there. It's a very interesting story. The captain of the company was a VMI graduate. And my record came through, he saw us from VPI. So he called me in as a working supplies here because there was a supply depot. I said, well, I come in to serve, and whatever you want me to do, I'll do. I want to serve my time, and when it's over, I'm going to go home. So if you think I can fit into your program, I'll gladly. So he signed me up at our depot.
How long?
Yeah, that wasn't connected with what I'd volunteered for. But I guess he had the power to do it. They pulled me out and put me in. But it was in supplies.
How long did you stay at Middletown Air Depot?
2.5 years. In fact, I thought I had a home there. Some captain, I believe, older guy been in the Army for years, was put in charge of the group that I had that I was working with, and he said, I'll put you in charge of the hangar, the hangar at the airfield, if you promise to stay with me. He said, well, you can stay here till the end of the war. So I That sounds good to me, you know. I'd already met some girls. In fact, my wife, that's where I picked up my wife there at Middletown there. So anyway, I said, okay, so he signed me up, and I thought, well, I'll be here for the rest of the war. Strange thing happened. The general from Wright Field, Ohio, came through inspection, you know. He looked at the roster, and he saw about 6 or 7 of us. Perfect health, no basic training. Said he almost climbed the wall. And he said, get those men trained and get them to assign them to a combat unit immediately.
And that was you.
That was me.
So when you went to Camp Lee, you didn't do any basic training?
No, I didn't do big training. I just stayed there for 1 day.
So you immediately went to this Middletown Air Depot, and you were working an office type of job?
Well, I was doing it mostly supplies, yeah. Not much, wasn't much of a job. It's a fact that I thought it was a country club of the Air Force. I really had it made.
So you weren't actually putting things together on an airplane?
No, we weren't. No.
Keeping track of all
I stayed in supplies then. It didn't have. In fact, I sort of volunteered to be a mechanic, work on airplanes, and but he pulled me out and put me in supplies, so I didn't complain.
What type of airplanes were at this air depot?
Mostly not combats, but
training planes?
Training and supplies, carrying supplies.
Okay, transporters.
Transporters, yeah.
Yeah. For 2.5 years, you looked like you were having an easy go at it.
I couldn't believe I was that lucky.
Did the war in Europe come to an end before you were shipped out?
The war in the end, war came in Europe. I was in the island of Tinian when the war in Europe ended.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So for 2.5 years, until D-Day or something like that, you were here in the States.
I had life of leisure there for 2.5 years.
So you went and got basic training?
Well, you can call it basic training if you want to.
Where did you have to go for that?
Nowhere, just there at the post. We take hikes and look at movies and that kind of stuff.
So it's not like it was too strenuous.
Well, you know what basic training is. You can take basic training yourself if you wanted to. For the work we were doing, we weren't going to be in combat. So all we need is learn the rules of the Army and what to do in their situations.
So why did you get transferred somewhere else?
To Iran? To
Tinian.
To Tinian. Well, they signed us to a heavy bomb group. That's where they signed us. And that's when we started training.
Is that the 509th?
509th, yeah.
Where did they do the training for the 509th Heavy Bomb Group?
We're under different. We were sent to Robbinsville, Georgia, and in Robbinsville, Georgia, we worked with supplies. There was a place almost like Middletown, Pennsylvania, only with heavy bombing. And then we did some training there. Then they shipped us out to Smoky Hill Army Air Base in Salina, Kansas. And there we got our final basic training on B-29s.
Were you learning anything besides the supply parts?
Just supplies.
Yeah. So you weren't actually fixing the airplanes, you just had the parts that needed.
Just parts.
Which required you to know all these different parts that went into this new airplane?
Well, we had catalogs, half the room was this house. And they told us in our training, don't ever try to memorize a part. Always look it up. For every plane we had on the base, we had the tech numbers for, every bolt and every nut had a tech number. And you had to look up that tech number. If somebody wanted the bolt, say we had to look up the tech number and give them the right bolt, right nut, or whatever they wanted.
Were these bolts numbered and actually stamped on the part?
It had a number, had a part number on. Yeah.
The B-29 was a brand new airplane at the time.
Yeah.
Top secret, I was told.
The plane wasn't the top secret, but the atomic bomb was a top secret. Nobody in the post, nobody on that post. But I don't believe even the general, the man in charge of the post, knew what was going on. He knew that we were bombing with the B-29s, but they didn't know the atomic bomb was being developed.
When did they ship you out to the Marianas at Tinian?
When?
Yeah, when?
Let's see. I guess about the early part of 45. Somewhere in the early part of 45.
And when you...
I spent 1 year on the island of Tinian.
How did you get out there? By boat or by plane?
Boat.
Boat? You remember the name of the boat that took you there?
No, I don't remember. But when we went over, we were in a convoy of about 6 ships with no protection at all. It took us a month to get over there because we were going all the way through the ocean so the Japanese wouldn't know where we were, because they'd found us, we'd all been gone. We had no protection at all.
Did you come... Do you know if you came under attack at all?
No, we didn't go under attack, no.
When you landed at Tinian, what was the weather like?
It was nice. Tinian's a nice climate. But the harbor wasn't equipped to handle big boats. So we had to climb off the boat and climb off our boat and get into smaller boats and go to shore.
Did you land on a beach or on a dock?
Well, a beach. It was a beach at the time, but the dock was being formed. We were delayed a couple of months because they didn't have the island secured. Once it got it secured, then we went in.
Saipan is not too far from Tinian. Could you see Saipan?
Show you something. This is the airfield. This is the airfield called North Tinian. There's 100 B-29s on parked here on this. My warehouses were down in through here.
Yeah.
Where we supplied this. See the ridge right here?
Yeah.
That's Saipan.
So you could see it from your
You
base.
see it a couple miles across there. There's water here, there's water all around it. This airfield was right at the edge of the water. You had a road around there, and that's all was there. And then went into the water. And Saipan was over here, and the ocean came all around like this.
Was Tinian flat?
Oh, well, the CBs made it flat. CBs, we were told when they were just building the runways when we landed. And the hard stands, each one of those things, there's a hard stand.
Right.
And they were told, first thing they told us, do not get in the way, in the way of any pickup truck. They had to dump in that pickup, dump trucks. They had dump trucks, building the hard stands and the big runway. See, they don't stop for anything. They go 40, 50 miles an hour and won't stop for anything. They'll run right over top of you if you get in their way. That's their orders. They were working against time, to get the runway intact so they started using planes. And we didn't get in the way, I tell you that. And they were right, because those dump trucks would fly through, hauling rocks and stones and stuff to build the runway.
When you were in Salina, Kansas, did you see operating B-29s?
I don't think we ever saw one, to tell you the truth.
So when you had all the parts, you just never saw an operating one.
Yeah.
But you did see them there at Tinian.
Yeah, oh my, yes, we lived right.
Yeah, you showed me where you live.
I was living back in here.
Okay.
I was sleeping 300 yards from the day that the B-29 was loaded with atomic bomb to go over Hiroshima.
Had you seen the Enola Gay before the attack?
Oh yeah, we went by it every day to work. We come down this road right here. Enola Gay was parked right in through here. We'd come by it every day. Yeah, we know what it was. Nobody knew what it was.
Just another B-29.
Another B-29. Nobody knew.
I was told that they had to do some modifications to the loading platform.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you about that. We went by one day and there was dug a hole in the ground. They loaded the bombs with the hydraulic jack, and pushed them up inside it. We came by it. Dug a hole in the ground. And we said, what the hole's for? Nobody knew, so we came. A couple of days, they put concrete around. Nice concrete hole, smooth. And later on, we found out that the atomic bomb was too big for a plane to go over and be pulled up in the fuselage. So they had to dig a hole to put the bomb down in the hole, and then run the plane over the hole and jack it up in there.
When the B-29s took off from your air base, did they circle the air base until they got into a big formation?
No, they formed out on the ocean somewhere.
What was the feeling when you heard all those airplanes start up for bombing raid?
We don't have any particular feeling. Then we'll tell you this.
They're big airplanes.
Huh?
They're huge airplanes.
Oh yeah. About, I'd say, a month or so before the atomic bomb was dropped. One night, the moon was shining. The wind had a good breeze. Everything was perfect. We got orders to fill every available airplane with enough gas to go over the target and get back, and the rest of it incendiary bombs. Saipan, Guam got the same order. Every available plane. So evidently there should have been about at least 250 B-29s flying over Japan in those thatch huts, then dropping atomic bomb, dropping
the fire bombs, napalm.
Yeah. Then dropping incendiary bombs. And I read the other day, they say they killed more than the atomic bomb killed.
I've talked to veterans who were on those raids.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, where you going at 3 o'clock, he was on the ship. Henry, when we dropped the atomic, before we dropped the atomic bomb, getting ready to invade Japan. And they went in there peacefully, and he said he saw areas where there was nothing at all. Everything was blind, just nothing. And that's where they bombed them, I guess, because they'd killed way up into thousands of people.
When the atomic attack came in August, you had no clue that the attack had come.
Nobody had
on the radio.
Nobody had any idea.
And then they dropped another one 2 days later.
3 days later.
3 days. Did it come from the same base?
Yeah, oh yeah. Boxcar. Boxcar was behind, so Enola Gay was sitting out in front of the boxcar right behind it. I'll tell you a little story about this. We were doing the chores, bombing and every night when we could and so forth. And one day, 4 or 5 guys came to our warehouse and said, "We're supposed to work here." I said, "Why?" "Well, I don't know. We're assigned." And we said, "But it's a new outfit come in on the island." I said, "How many planes you got?" 2, Enola Gay and boxcar. They weren't named, and they didn't know my names. They just had 2 planes. And I said, well, we are servicing 100, and 2 more not going to make a difference. But we don't need you. I said, we're assigned here. So during the process, a couple of days, we got to know them better. We'd say, well, how'd you get with this outfit? Well, it said they had, they were stationed somewhere, I've forgotten where, and the officers came around and says, we're looking for volunteers. We've got a special mission. If this mission is complete and successful, you will be discharged immediately. So we said, we laughed a bit. Boy, they saw you a bill of goods, didn't they? Well, anyway, they didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. So when the first atomic bomb was dropped, the Japanese didn't surrender. 3 days later, the second one was dropped. And the next day, those guys went home. I got to kept their promise. They kept their promise to send them home. That was in August. And I didn't get home until December. After December.
They came.
Yeah, they kept their promise. They waved goodbye and went home. Flew them home even. We had to go home by boat, and they flew them home.
Do you recall your officers who were in charge of you?
No, I don't remember the names.
Who was your closest buddy while you were in the service?
Well, I guess a guy from Harrisburg. I think he just died not long ago. And a fellow from Iowa, farmer from Iowa.
What was his name?
Since I was, I can't recall right now. I can't remember. Ham was a guy in Harrisburg. Leonard Ham. Lee Ham is his name.
When you went into the Army, you stopped eating at home. You started eating Army food. How would you think Army food for you was?
I can eat anything. That's one thing. I'm not particular what I eat. I like everything. I'm a good eater. And like my grandson says, if somebody don't want to give it to Pappy, he'll eat anything.
Did you see?
I didn't like New Zealand goat. I didn't care too much for that.
Were you in New Zealand for a while?
Well, they shipped in food there from New Zealand and to the island of Tinian, and you could smell it a half mile away. Every time we lined up for chow, and they get near the mess hall and smell goat, and they drop out and go back and do without a meal.
Did you see any USO shows with famous personalities in it?
Well, a couple came on the island, but we didn't have any real big shows. Wasn't enough of us there to justify it. There wasn't that many there. But I remember a couple of them came through. And the thing of it is, after I got back, I went to Bridgewater to a college, and I played baseball when I was in college. And I asked for one guy, and found him, and he said he was coaching a baseball team and played ball on Tinian, and I didn't even know it. I'd have been to the ball game.
So there was a lot of people on that island then.
Well, Navy's one end and Army at the other end. Wasn't a whole lot, but there was a lot of them.
Did you see airplanes come in to Tinian that were disabled or had problems with them?
Yeah. When the night they had that incendiary bombing over Tokyo, boy, the planes came back. Guys would jump out of the plane, kiss the ground, and see where they'd been shot up in the tail. I saw quite a bit of that.
Did they fly anything besides B-29s off that island?
No, that's all we had. Some the fighter planes and other planes would come by there and drop. They'd spend the night there sometime, or a couple of days, waiting to go into a certain area at a certain time. Until they got orders to go, they'd stay there a couple of days sometime.
I believe you mentioned, or somebody mentioned to me, that after the atomic attack, the Japanese said something about retaliation.
Oh, yeah. Well, See that theater?
Yeah.
It's an amphitheater. These prisoners of war built. Beautiful thing. We were at the, all the crew, well, quite a few of them. We were sitting down waiting for the movie to start. Just about dusk one night. Come across the screen. Everybody returned to their base. Hiroshima has been bombed with the B-29, Enola J. And Tokyo Rose is on the air and the radio. It's saying, "We're coming over tonight to get you. We know where the bomb came from, the island of Tinian." So we all laughed, because we knew they couldn't get there. But we had to go. The crowd didn't show the movie. We went back to our barracks, and everybody got in their stations. And they say the only preparation they had was they loaded some trucks with bombs and parked them near the highway, near the airstrips. If they tried to land, but they weren't strong enough. We had fighter planes all around. They never would have made it.
Did you see any aircraft carriers near?
No, I didn't see any aircraft carriers.
In the city.
I didn't see any aircraft carriers.
How about the big battleships, battle wagons?
No, I didn't see any of them.
But you were being supplied by regular merchant ships.
Yeah, merchant ships. Yeah.
Plenty of those. By the time you made it to Tinian, was the fighting on Saipan all done?
Yeah, they were there. But they were telling us about how this airfield that showed you there was flat, and the battle tanks, our tanks against the Japanese tanks, and the Navy had their ships out there, and they said they had perfect aim. They just pop off tanks and anything to it. I don't think I lost many men on Tinian. They just set out the ship bombed the tanks that were approaching the American lines. That's all to it. Those ships were accurate. They could shoot. When they shot, boy, they hit their target.
You were part of the bomb group that ushered us into the nuclear age, using nuclear weapons.
Right.
There weren't that many of you guys, a couple of thousand maybe, all involved. Right. There are a lot of people saying we should not have used a nuclear bomb.
Don't agree with them. They were building a hospital right above where I was working as the supply depots. They had the concrete down in the arches, or putting up the arches for a hospital to take care of the wounded when they invaded Japan. The day that they dropped the atomic bomb, there wasn't a lick of work done after that. Stopped right in their tracks. Put whatever they had over the bank into the ocean.
So you don't blame?
No, it would have been terrible. It would have been terrible. It would have been terrible.
It could have been you.
Could have been, well, it wouldn't only have been me, but they wouldn't have gotten to Tinian. They wouldn't have gotten to Tinian. It's the infantry was the ones would have gotten. But then the guy you see next, he'll tell you about that. When they went in peacefully, they had all these guns lined up around the coast. Had sheets over them, white sheets over them. And all those guns were shooting. It'd have been terrible.
When the war came to an end and the signing in September was done on the Missouri, were you still in Tinian?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did you all celebrate?
I don't think so. I don't remember any celebration. In Tinian, you couldn't spend any money. Wasn't anything to spend money on. The only way they spend money was gambling.
Were you said you met your wife when you were back in Pennsylvania. Were you writing her often?
Oh yeah. It's funny. At her second letter, she knew where I was. She knew I was on either one of those 3 islands. So she asked the question in the letter. She says, if they didn't censor the letters coming in, but censored letters going out. They didn't censor letters coming in. So she says, answer this question, so-and-so if you're on Tinian, or so-and-so if you're on Saipan, or so-and-so if you're on Guam. So I answered Tinian. She knew exactly where it was. Second letter wrote her. She knew where it was. Yeah.
When did they ship you back from Tinian back to the States?
December 1945.
And where did they send you?
San Diego, California.
You know, I had asked you how you...
And it was a joke, you know. They had 3-piece orchestra on the dock playing. I was welcoming them back, you know, and it was a joke. You know, everybody laughed about that.
And did you leave to go to Tinian from California also?
No, I went up from Seattle, Washington.
Oh, I see. Went from
Puget Sound. We went to Puget Sound.
Right.
It hit a storm. Everybody on the boat was sick. Smelled like a hog pen. Oh, it was terrible.
When you got back to San Diego, did you know you were going to be discharged?
Oh yeah, I knew the exact date and everything.
Well, here the war is over, and you didn't get to shoot anybody.
That's right.
Were you disappointed, or were you glad?
I was glad. I didn't want to. I had trouble killing people. I'd have trouble doing that. I probably wouldn't have been killed myself. The early part, probably, if I were in the infantry.
Did you immediately go back and marry a wife, or did you?
We were married then.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, we married. We got married, but 2 months before I went overseas. We were married in Salina, Kansas.
So she followed you to the base?
Well, she was teaching school on weekends, and she got on the train and come out to visit me. Well, not every weekend, but every 2 or 3 times. So one time we decided to get married, and that was it.
Where did you go back home? Back to Port Republic?
Well, I went to her home first. And I was teaching agriculture at the time before I went into service, and
so that was down here in Virginia.
Yeah, my supervisor down in Winchester was they were wanting teachers badge, you say. He knew my brother, and so he called my brother and said asked where I was. So I got a letter and wanted to come back and work right away. But I went back. Got a little training down at Virginia Tech and taught about 3 or 4 months down in Fauquier County near Warrington. Near Warrington. Then I decided to go to Pennsylvania, so I went to Pennsylvania. Then I came from Pennsylvania to here.
What did the Army life teach you?
Well, I don't know. Take orders mainly. That's the main thing. Listen to what your superiors had for you to do. Try to do it the best you could.
It sounds like most of your experience was like just going to a job.
Right. It was. I was very lucky. No question about it. Very lucky.
Did you ever get malaria while you were out on Tinian?
No.
Did you get sick at all while you were in the service?
Seasick going over.
Real bad.
Get seasick coming back, but that's all. By the way, I have to tell you this. I was out in, where was that? Salina, Kansas. No, I was in Georgia. And their barber, the company barber, got discharged or left or something. And they never replaced him. So I was, one Saturday night, this young kid, looked like he wasn't over 20 years old, was bunking near me, and he came by, he's all dressed up, and he headed out, and I looked at his hair, it was all back. I said, who cut your hair? he said, well, you know, our cutting barber's gone, and some guy said he'd cut it for him. So I went over, he said, I went over and got the kit, and he cut my hair. I said, my goodness, you look awful. It's blocked up something terrible. He said, can you do any better? I said, I can do better than that. I know. So I took out the kit. I said, go over and get the kit, and I'll try to fix you up. So we went and got a kit, and I fixed him up pretty good. The word got around, I could cut hair, you know. So they come up to me cutting hair, and cut hair on my spare time. And I think you're supposed to, well, I was doing it for nothing, you know, just for something to do. So I said, no, I ain't going to do this, just getting hard work. So I'll start charging. You couldn't supposed to charge 15 cents, you know. So I started cutting hair in spare time, and then I went to Kansas, and I cut hair in Kansas, and I cut hair on the troop train going to Seattle, Washington, and I cut hair on the boat. And when I got to Tinian, I still kept cutting hair on the spare time, you know. So they had they used to raise sugar cane there on the island of Tinian, and they had these little wagons pulled with some kind of a little tractor. It's all beat up, and I saw a wheel with on an axle. I said, I can make a barber chair out of that. So I salvaged the thing and went to the welders there and told them to weld it, you know. So I made myself a barber chair.
So you cut hair also?
And I could just wheel them around, you know. So anytime I had spare time, if anybody wanted a haircut, I cut their hair. I had a lot of fun, but it got toward the last, I getting too much for them. I couldn't handle it all.
Did you use V-mail?
Do what?
When you wrote home, did you use Victory Mail?
Yeah. They would censor all my letters. My older brother was a doctor, and he was thinking about coming and joining up, and he wrote me a letter one time, and afterwards thought it'd be wise for me to go in. And I didn't give him any encouragement. I saw the letter, and when I got out, I saw the letter that I wrote him, and they had half of it censored.
You didn't do any censoring?
No, did you?
I appreciate your interview today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, no, that's it. I'd say I was very lucky.
Thank you, Mr.
To be in the Air Force and be in the outfit I was with. So that's about it.